Hey everybody, welcome to another great episode of Agent Pursuit. We're here today with Chloe McCara. And Chloe, we want to thank you for coming onto the show.
Thank you for having me.
And Chloe has an incredible system that she has used to grow her real estate business. And you've shared it with a few realtors, and now you have this, you've been inundated with people doing it.
Yes.
But people have also gotten some phenomenal results.
Yes.
And this is actually a home investment review that she used in her business in the past. Ninja, from the Ninja Selling Installation, also uses the real estate reviews. And they're very, very similar. Yours goes into quite a bit more in depth, but the principles are the same. And Chloe, wanted to have you on because you had such great results. You've done such a great job. And so thank you again for joining us.
Thanks. I'm super excited to be here. You're right. Yeah, I think we mentioned it on a CIR Live, and since then we've had a bunch of agents kind of reach out and want more information on it. So it's nice that we can kind of reach out to the whole company this way.
Yeah, nice. Thank you. So let's start off with, we have this binder.
Yes.
Big black binder. That is like something I've not seen anyone use anything since.
It's old school.
Not even university. I was like grade 11. That's like a grade 11 binder.
It's like leather bound.
It is.
Yeah, I love it. So do you want to start with, because this is like the staple of this meeting.
Yeah.
So do you want to kind of start with just being, maybe what do you call to say to people, and why do you bring this binder places?
Okay. So the real estate review, or as I called them when I was still selling, home investment reviews, was a means for me to stay in touch with my clients in a face-to-face way that was valuable to them between the points of sale. So I was looking for ways to kind of stay in touch with my clients when they weren't really looking to buy or sell, but still provide value to them and remain relevant in their life in some capacity. So I started doing home investment reviews. It's really not rocket science. A lot of the agents that sit down with me think it's far more simple than they
far more
thought.
Complex?
Yeah, they thought it's far more simple than they thought it would be. They thought it would be far more complex or hard to do. It's not hard to do. It's very simple. It's just providing information to your clients that you already have a relationship with. So I did this in a pretty old school way with a actual binder and paper, which is unusual in this day and age.
Yeah,
lots
totally,
of people, lots of, there's a whole movement obviously towards everything being on the internet, which I did do also, but I found the paper to be the most tangible way to sit down with people and just have coffee or whatever.
Well, there's a lot of studies that have been actually done that if two people, this is going to sound like it's romantic, but it's not, but if two people share learning materials, like physical learning materials, that the relationship, as far as so they talk about this a lot in group work, that if people are doing group work on a screen or a presentation screen, the connection with the other people in the room and the connection to the work is not remotely the same as if everybody brings their printed materials, you put it on, and people can actually touch and pass it out. So I think it's awesome.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. So I feel like your question was, how did I start the conversation with my clients? Is that what it was?
Yeah.
Okay. So,
when do you call?
Yeah. So I kind of started doing this when I first entered the industry. So it was never not part of my services, really. So when I started working with buyers, for example, I would bring this up in my buyer interview before I ever sold them anything, just to kind of introduce the idea of that I wasn't going anywhere, that I intended to stay with them throughout their whole life cycle of being a homeowner.
Yeah.
So that was never really something I had to kind of drop on them and say, oh, by the way, this is a new service. Since, taking this position at CIR, I've talked about this with other agents who want to introduce it to their clients, their previous clients, as a new service that they're providing to their clients, their previous clients, whatever. So what I did was,
It's all good.
I did was I just reached out to my clients when it was time for their annual investment review or real estate review, and just let them know that I'd be popping by sometime this month. When was a good time for them?
Let me just take a step back here for a second, because you said that you've been doing this since day one.
Yeah.
How did you come up with that?
So my dad is in the industry.
Got it.
He's an old school guy. His name's also Guy, but he's an old school guy.
Literally and figuratively.
Literally and figuratively. Yeah. And he introduced this as an idea for me to kind of get going, because when I started, I was 23, 24, before any of my friends were really even considering buying houses. So I really had to grind to figure out, how do I get in front of people that actually want to purchase homes or sell homes, or who have family or friends that want to buy and sell homes. So at that time, this was something I started doing just to get my feet wet and to get in front of people to talk about the value of properties, the idea that real estate is an investment, whereas a lot of people just see their home as a place where their kids come for dinner or where they go to sleep at night. They don't really recognize it as one of their largest assets in their financial portfolio. So just starting to have conversations like that as a 24-year-old brand new in the industry really got me good at doing market analysis and having conversations with people before there was any pressure really about how to buy or sell a property.
Nice.
So it was just a way for me to get in front of people at that time. And then that just built my book of business and my database to be a really, really strong business that was based totally on repeat clients and referrals. So
love it.
Yeah, so that was kind of the idea behind it. So yeah, my dad, being the old school guy, developed this with me to just get in front of people.
When I sold real estate, I had my tagline was clients for life, but I don't know if I actually had a great value offering besides the fact that I'm a really nice guy and I got the job done. And I think this is fantastic as something to prolong the relationship, but add real value. Did you do these right on the home anniversary? Like, would you call them up, or how did that come up in your calendar?
Good question. So the ninja way to do this is consistently. So every week you want 2 of these per week with a past client or adding a new client, and it's kind of 2 this week, 2 next week, 2 the week after that, so that it's a consistent drip. I started doing it that way, but for me personally, and that doesn't mean that you guys have to do it this way at all, but I found it difficult to maintain that in the months where I was selling homes.
Right.
Which is obviously the goal of this, is to sell homes. So when I got really busy in the spring or fall, these totally fell off the map, which meant that I wasn't doing my job and being consistent about it. So what I ended up doing is I would pile these into the winter months. So November, December, January, even February, I would do like 10 of these a week.
Wow.
Nice.
And it just made it more realistic so that I could actually do all of my clients in a year instead of trying to do 2 every week. And then I just get totally sidetracked by showing houses and listing houses, which is great. But you know how real estate goes. If you're not doing the things that get you business, you're going to stop getting business. So
do you think you're busy in the spring because you did all these in the winter?
Totally.
I'm just there's probably a little bit of truth to it, but it's also
there is. Yeah, for sure there is. And it happens to coincide with when tax assessments come out.
That's perfect.
So it worked really well.
Yeah.
Which we'll get to in a second why that matters. But so I didn't do the 2 per week thing like Ninja did. I tried the consistency in a different way, which was annually, just loading them into the months where I had.
I would like that too, because I would feel like you finished a project. Like there's a start and there's an end, and when the end is done, you're like, this is done for the next 8 months, and I don't have to think about it, which to me would be a lot nicer than being like, this is a reoccurring task. I hate teach their own, but I hate reoccurring tasks. So it'd be nice to be like, yes.
Yeah, like this is my project for the next 2 months.
Yeah, and I crushed it.
Yeah.
And plus people are traditionally less busy, and it gives you something to do. People always, we see realtors all the time being like, well, what do I do today? Yeah. Get out there and do this. Have real estate related conversation. Yeah. That's what I loved open houses for, was you got to talk about real estate. But this is phenomenal. I think that's the best way to say, hey, let's, I've done up a investment analysis or a home investment review. Let's change to that now. So you called somebody up.
Yeah.
And you're going to talk to a few people. What was your strategy for who you called, and what did you say to them?
Okay. So bundling these into the winter months, I did make a priority schedule of who I got to first. So every year I would take notes on, things that people said. If any major events in their life happened, I would put them to the top of the list.
Beautiful.
So major events that happened, if they'd been in their home for an extended amount of time, because there is a life cycle to real estate. I think the average is like every 7 years.
Yeah, 7
or
to
8
10
years
whatever
or
it is,
10 years, whatever, somewhere in there, 7 to 10 years. So if they had been in their home for longer, they'd go to the top of my list because they're more likely to sell. So I wanted to make sure I got to those people at least. And then the people that I know really, really wait for it and wait for my call, which there are clients that like wait for these calls. They love them. They love the review. And it's partially is because you're coming to talk to them about their home, but it's also just a connection to the real estate industry too.
Yeah.
And getting that information on what's going on out there and what's happening in the market, especially in markets like this, having someone be able to speak realistically about what's going on instead of reading it in the news is kind of nice.
Yeah.
So people do enjoy it. Yeah.
Cool.
Nice. Yeah.
So then you'd show up.
Oh, well, what did you say on the call?
Oh,
let's start with
sorry.
that.
Well, so I'm a very casual person.
Yeah, which is great.
That's just how I am. And that's how I was with I don't sell anymore. That's how I was with my clients at the time as well. So I just would call them and say, hey, it's time for your annual investment review. When can I come over? Or, is Thursday at 7 good?
I feel like the way that you are casual about that, I think that's a learning lesson because I think that people overthink this.
Totally.
It's like, oh, hi there, Chloe McCara from CIR Realty. I was wondering if you guys would be interested in your annual. I was like, hey, checking the calendar, it's time. We haven't sat down and let's get together.
Exactly.
And I can bring this. And you're just like, oh, yeah, that's great. But if you're trying to sell it to them, there's nothing to sell.
There's nothing to sell here because really, really what you're doing is adding value to them. There's no reason why they wouldn't want this unless they have some inkling that you're trying to sell them on something.
Right.
Otherwise, you're
Why
just
wouldn't
coming
you?
and giving them information and having a glass of wine or cup of coffee or whatever. And there's should be zero pressure at all on them. It's not about the sale today. It's about growing that relationship so that, whenever that happens in their life, which could be never.
Yeah.
They might never sell this house while you have a career in real estate, and it doesn't matter. It's about providing the service to your clients and proving yourself and gaining that trust so that if their son sells or their mom sells or their friend down the street, whatever, it doesn't matter if they never sell. It really doesn't. If you're doing the work, it will come back to you.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it. Okay.
Yeah.
So take us through, you get there, like Kirsten said.
Okay.
Period of small talk at the beginning, just, you're just being who you are, obviously.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, at some point, these people basically become your friends because you see them every year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or maybe, and sometimes that's a detriment because they want to hang out longer than you want to necessarily be there, which is something to be conscious of in time blocking because it can become like an entire evening thing, which, if you have time for that, then great. I would try and do like 2 or 3 of these per community in a night. So if I had 3 clients in Tuscany, I would try and do all 3 of my Tuscany clients in one night. So I'm not driving around like a crazy person because I have a child and a husband and they like to see me too. So if I can organize my time and set those expectations up front that, it'll be like an hour appointment or so, people are usually pretty respectful.
And how much of that is actually spent, so let's say it's an hour an appointment, how much of it is actually spent going through this?
Like 20 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah. Maybe 30 minutes. I would, if they are actually considering selling anytime in the near future.
Of course, then there's more questions.
It does, take longer. But the primary purpose of this is to grow the relationship.
Yeah.
So, and to give them the information. I would say most of my clients, you spend 20 minutes, half an hour, and then you move on and talk about their vacation or their kids or whatever. Whatever
the
they want
nice
to talk
thing is about all of that, I think if the premise is just a very simple real estate review and you don't actually have anything girthy to leave, then it's almost like if you come and you don't talk that much about real estate, but you're not leaving them anything, and then you leave, it's like, well, was this really about that? Right? You bring so much, and we'll go through that in a second, but there's so much in that binder that even if you didn't talk about it, and you left, and that
Right.
was it. It would be like, she came here completely prepared. The point of this was actually to do an investment on my home, regardless of how much we talked about it, versus here's 3 pieces of paper. I came to your house. Not much was actually left, and we didn't talk about real estate.
Exactly. They feel like they're getting something out of it.
Absolutely,
Anyway.
which is cool.
So, okay, so the first time I would do this, you have to show up with the actual binder, obviously, because they don't have one yet. The consecutive years after that, I leave the binder
so
there.
people can kind of see what we're talking about here.
So I would leave the binder with them, and then in the next couple of years, all you do is bring your new market analysis and the tax assessment, because they will have that at their house.
And then you just stick everything in the binder. I'm gonna Vanna White this while you
Totally.
while you kind of like point at things.
Well, I think what we can do is we'll grab some photos of it.
Sure, yeah.
Oh, yeah, we can do that, and
we
then
can splice them in on so that people can get a better.
Yeah,
shot
that
of
makes
it. And
sense.
so-
But for now, as a general, so it's just not like
Yeah.
a binder on a thing. Obviously, this is a black binder, and your business card is in it,
Yeah.
and there's a bunch of paper in it, and you have tabs with words on them.
Totally.
So that is like the basic structure
It's
of
pretty
said
basic.
binder.
It's so obviously this is all my old branding, so that there's that, but it doesn't matter. The premise is exactly the same. So I did custom binders with my branding on it. Had I started from scratch again, I don't know that I would go this in depth and spend this much money per binder again. I don't think that's the premise behind it. It doesn't have to be perfect.
You can even do a clear view binder with a
can do
printed
anything.
off thing that you slide in there. And,
Totally.
Yeah.
You can do whatever you want. It can be $5. It can be, these were like almost $30 per client.
Yeah.
But the thing about this is that you're not doing it for a 1,000-person database. You just don't have the time to do that. So for me, I had like 80. That was my A database, and I only had 80 people that I did this for in a year. I think the Ninja way tells you to do more than that, depending on what your income goals are and
About
stuff
100.
like that.
I mean, it's not like if you do 2 a week, it's about 100 with taking 48 weeks. So
Exactly. So you will discover as you do them that they are more labor intensive than you would think off the top of your head. But once you get going in them, you get really efficient at doing market analysis, and you know the homes, and it's just like bang, 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 print it off, go show up. Perfect. So at first it's a little bit cumbersome, but once you get going, it's not bad.
So give us an overview of the tabs on what you have in there, and what you talk about, and then we'll go a little bit more in depth in each section.
Sure. Okay. So overview of the tabs are market analysis section, and then a mortgage section, which is primarily just for filing, tax assessments, insurance, which again is just for filing, a maintenance and renovations section, which is wants and needs or future goals section, and then contracts and miscellaneous. So you're not actively necessarily doing something with all of these sections. A lot of these are static, just meant for filing purposes.
Which is great. So you have all of your home documents in one place.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
that's clever.
So they just
convenient.
throw their insurance documents in here. It's not necessarily something that you are going to talk about every year with them because it's not super relevant.
Yeah.
But it is something to do with their home, and they're going to pull out the binder and they're going to use, the stuff with your branding on it. The name recognition happens. So it's still important, I think, to have those things in here.
Cool.
Start
well,
from the top?
start. Yeah, let's start. Yeah, let's start from the top. So so everything that's in this binder. So we're in a pretty cool loft right now, downtown Calgary, which this is a report that you did based off of the space that we're in.
Yeah, and so this loft is was a client of mine that I did reviews with for 6 years. So I sold them this unit in 2012, and I did these annual investment reviews with them until now, and now they're selling it. So I maintained that relationship over the years, and the great thing about these types of relationships is that you don't usually have to compete with other agents when it comes time to sell, because you have such a strong relationship, and they've, you've already built that trust, and they know that you know what you're talking about because you've been, assessing their property for years and years and years. Yeah. And you just know everything about it. So
that's great.
It makes it easy. So, okay. So section 1 is the market analysis. So what I do is a little bit different than what Ninja says to do in this section. I don't think there's a right or a wrong way to do it. It's just about the information and knowing your client. Obviously, if you have clients that are, accountants, engineers, you probably want to be more in depth with the numbers. You just got to know your clients and know what kind of information they want. In here for today, I'll show you what I did. So I have printed out the cover page from the CIR page, the virtual office, because I like it. It matches the branding. And then I have all the previous market analysis in here as well from the previous years. So had this been a normal client meeting, they have all their other ones in here from the previous years. And then what I do is pretty specific to their property. I don't spend a lot of time on the Canadian stats or the Alberta stats. Not that they're not valuable. I just find that your average person doesn't want to know that much about it. Yeah. They want to know about what their neighbors sold for, what their house is worth, and then that's it.
Yeah.
Mostly.
Yeah.
More sophisticated investors and stuff will want more information than that, but for your average person. So I would literally, I would print off the home price index from the Calgary Real Estate Board for their community in this type of property. So I know specifically that I can speak to what's gone on in this community over the last 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. And it's not the best news that you're coming back with right now, which is what it is. I mean, you
can't change it.
You can't change it. Yeah. And there's agents that are kind of tiptoeing around. I sold them a property back in 2014, and they're nervous about going back and telling them.
Like it's their fault.
Like it's their fault.
Yeah.
It's not your fault. Like, you can't control this market. If we could have controlled this, it wouldn't have happened. So
we just watched Good Will Hunting a little while ago. Okay. Robin Williams is talking to Will, Matt Damon.
Yeah.
And it's like,
not your fault.
The like, it's not your fault. It's not your fault. Don't do this to me. It's not your fault. And pretty soon Matt Damon break down crying. And that's how he reached him. So I feel like we need to tell realtors that.
Yeah,
it's not your fault. It's not your fault. Go talk to your client.
That's right.
It's not your fault.
It's right. And
I like that a lot, actually.
Me, an informed client is better than an uninformed client. So, if they're not going to sell for a few more years, it's still important for them to understand, how much equity do they have in this property? Do they have equity? What if something happens and they need to pull money out of their property? Who knows what their life situation is at? And
better to plan for that now than have unrealistic expectations and then be totally mortified.
Exactly. And the great thing about doing this is that when a client is ready to sell, they're so educated on what their property is worth, you almost never have to fight with them on the value of their home, or work on those price reductions, or fight with other agents on, someone says it's worth $600, but I say it's worth $550. You don't really have to do any of that because your clients are educated. They've known through the years what's going on, what's happening with the value. So it's really nice on that front that you have educated clients to work with. So anyways, going back to this, I would print off the home price index for their community so that they understand just the general trends of their community and what's going on. And then I would just do a normal market analysis like I would do with any property, straight off of Matrix, so nothing crazy or fancy, and just, print off the comps that have sold that are somewhat or as close to the existing property that you're doing. So for this property, I would only look at other loft buildings that were a similar age. And if I could, specifically in this building, if not, then there's like 3 other buildings that match. And those are the only comps I would look at. So very specific to the style of property. And then just like any market analysis, I would make adjustments that were relevant.
Perfect.
So that's it. And then at the end of the day, I would arrive at a price range, and I would give them a range of what their property should fall in if they had wanted to sell it today.
Nice.
Great.
That's it. I don't bring in actives. I didn't bring in actives at this time because they weren't looking at listings, so you don't really care what the competition's doing, and if they're not sold
and they haven't
anyway.
Sold anyways.
Yeah.
So I didn't bring in actives. That doesn't mean you can't, but I just use solds.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
So for example, for this property, let's call the value range between 620 and 630 for the purpose of the rest of this, just so that we have a reference point. So then I would move on to the mortgage section. What I would talk about here the first time is just getting an idea of when their term is up. I don't speak at all to what their mortgage rates are or their product or anything like that, because obviously we're not mortgage specialists. But I would try and get their term from them so that in the year that it was relevant to them, I could either bring their mortgage broker back with me for their annual review, or if they weren't really talking to that person anymore, bring another one with me so that they could ask questions.
Have you done that before? Like you just
Yeah.
brought in and you kind of tag team the
Yeah.
situation? Perfect.
Yeah, and it's really nice because then your clients in a stress-free environment can ask questions about mortgages and, you know, express what their plans are without any sales pressure of having to sign anything
Yeah.
or
Totally.
do anything with their mortgage.
Well,
And
a lot
with
of people
someone-
don't know until they're like, your mortgage is up in 7 weeks. You're like, oh, I totally forgot about that. And then it's
Exactly.
kind of pressure time.
Yeah,
which,
sign here.
Yeah.
And no one
sometimes
likes
with their-
that.
Yeah.
Exactly, and
Yeah.
they get sent a renewal notice from their bank, and most consumers don't really think about that or recognize that, you know, it's 6 weeks away. Now we're in this pressure cooker and we have to get all of our ducks in a row for mortgages. So I would, write down when their term is coming due, and if it was relevant and they felt comfortable, then I would just bring someone in the mortgage industry so that they could ask questions.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
Perfect.
That's what I would do there. And then
Perfect.
it's just a filing tab. So whenever they get their annual statement from their mortgage, they could throw it in here so it's all in one place.
Perfect.
Tax assessments. So this is something that I would print off with me to bring back every year. Obviously, people have tax assessments laying around their house somewhere. Everyone gets sent them. Most people lose them, I find.
Yeah.
I don't like to rely on my clients to find anything when I get there. I try and bring everything I need with me. So I used to do.
Do you have our tax assessments in a folder somewhere?
They are all filed in a folder.
I would hope that you guys of all people would have that somewhere
Thank
in
you
an
for putting me on the
organized
spot.
manager.
We're good.
An organized manner. But I just like the Krebs Maps printout. All the properties are on there, and it has the last several years worth of tax assessed values on here. So I would just print it off. This year, 2018, this property is tax assessed at $619,500. So I would just take 2 seconds and say, okay, this property, the city thinks it's worth $620,000. I think it's worth $620,000 to $630,000. That's pretty close. We don't really need to worry about that. Mm-hmm. Now,
Would you do for places like Cochrane? Like when you went out to other places that didn't have
You can
Krebs
pull
maps?
them.
Pull them just from the local municipality
exactly.
and you printed off that page for the
Yeah.
local. Okay, awesome.
Exactly. So had this been way out of whack, which does happen occasionally, I think we had one a couple of years ago that was $150,000 out, realistically was out. And those clients called the city and were then able to get their property taxes reduced. So that's just a value-added service that you might be able to pick up on something there that most people would not likely catch because they're not educated about what their property is worth. So they would just pick it up and
pay the money,
file it. Whereas this way, it's just another set of eyes to
Perfect.
look over something for their home. So that's all I would do there. Put that away. Insurance section is pretty quick. You file your stuff in here. Again, it's just kind of a static section. The one tip I would give on home insurance is just do a quick video of your property every year, of the contents in your home, any valuables that you might have, open your jewelry drawer, whatever, and just store it in the cloud somewhere so that, God forbid, anything happens to your property, you have somewhere to start with your insurance company that you have all this stuff in your home.
Yeah.
And then, just save it in the cloud. And
That's a good reminder.
yeah.
That's a good reminder.
And if my clients didn't do it during that year, I would say let's take 5 minutes and just do it now.
Perfect.
Yeah. I'm a do it now type of person. I don't like to leave things. So I would just get them to do it while I was sitting there.
You guys would get along well.
Yeah. Like,
I'm a leave it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Give me the
I feel like
checklist.
the
Let's
kinda
go.
guy.
You are a leave it kind of guy.
See what I feel like it. What
Yeah.
other things could I be doing right now? I'm gonna have some water.
Okay. Maintenance section. on my book, it's called Maintenance Section. Had I redone this or had to reprint anything or do it over again, I would add a renovation section to this. So this is important, super important for a lot of reasons. For one, this is going to give you a really good place to start for marketing the home. Eventually, when they go to sell it, you'll have a really extensive list of all the things that they've done in that home since they owned it.
And what you have here, and I'm sure we'll be able to get some images on screen, but basically you've created charts, and the columns in your chart say work done, company, tradespeople, name, contact info, notes.
Yep.
And then on your maintenance, so that's for your contact info.
Yep.
And then you have a maintenance log that says date, work done, cost, and then notes.
Yes.
So you kind of give them the exact format you want them tracking this stuff in.
Exactly. I don't like leaving anything to their creative juices. I'm pretty straightforward. So yeah, there's two different documents here. The trade contact info, this is for like the regular maintenance things in a home. For example, a hot tub or a steam room where it's kind of hard to get a good guy. So if you have a good guy, write down their information so that you know who your guy is for your steam room.
Perfect.
What I liked about this form is that you could leave it with the buyers of the property so that they now know who maintains the stuff in the home.
Perfect.
So it's a value add to the next set of owners in that property as well. One thing
That
I
is
would do,
really nice.
Yeah, one thing I do differently on this is I would put my contact information on here because I didn't do it this time, and when I leave this behind, it's without my information. So I would, in the future, add my contact info on there so that when you leave it behind,
nice touch.
Yeah, the buyers have access to you if they need it for some reason.
Cool.
Or they want to have annual investment reviews themselves.
Absolutely. You too could benefit from something like this.
You too. Maintenance log, this is just basically a chart of the things that they've done over the years. So for example, in this property, they did a bunch of work in here in 2013 when they bought it. And I would have had them write that all down in here. I would also have a plastic kind of insert here where they can keep all their receipts. So when you go to list the home, you have all that information for the listing, which is
And be
nice.
like, there's $18,000 worth of upgrades. Like, these are the receipts.
Or, I mean, if you're in a community like Tuscany where every fifth house is the same and you're literally competing against the same house down the street, well, if one has a maintenance log and one doesn't, and you can prove that this home's been really well maintained and the other guy doesn't have anything that proves that, that's a bonus feature for the buyers, and it can make the difference between a sale or that person buying the other home.
That's really nice.
It's nice to have that. The other thing I would talk about in this section is renovations. So renovations, realtors often shy away from talking about renos with their clients because it means that they're not moving, but I disagree with that. I think if you take the time to talk with your clients about renovations, then they'll make better decisions. They'll understand how their money being spent will be reflected in resale. And it's going to get them talking to you about what they're doing. I found that if I could get involved in that conversation, my clients at the end of the day were more educated on what their returns would be. And
the talking part
decisions.
Well, the talking part is good too, though, right? Because if someone's like, well, like my mom might be moving in, or like we might be having a baby, so I need to do this to the room. Like, it's just those are all nice little trigger points to be like, why do you need space to be used differently?
Yes.
Yeah,
Also,
which is very
people,
clever.
Yeah, exactly. And if people believe that you truly have their best interests at heart, are they more likely or less likely to refer you? Exactly. Are they more likely or less likely to use you in the future?
Exactly.
And I totally, when I was sat down with people too, one of the questions is when they were selling or said to me they wanted to sell, I said, have you guys considered not selling, just renting it?
Right.
And people were like, but how would you get paid?
I wouldn't.
Said, doesn't matter, like it doesn't right now, like in the future for sure. But I mean, if it makes sense to start adding to a portfolio, and people just sort of like, oh, like you genuinely care about me. And it's like, holy, heaven forbid, like there's some people that don't genuinely care about you. Don't ever shy away. I don't even know what camera I'm looking at. All of you out there, everyone, don't shy away from that because it's absolutely incredible.
Absolutely.
That's going to be quite the editing job, Jordan. You got to look at this one, finishing it on that one. So
that's awesome.
Okay, maintenance log. So next.
No, renovations.
Renovations.
Yeah. So renovations done. Don't be afraid to talk to your clients about renovations. Okay, wishes, wants, and needs section or future planning section. When I first started doing these, I was nervous to talk to people about this because I felt, personally, I just felt like I was trying to sell them something at that point, which was completely false. This is a section where you get to dream a little bit with your clients and help you understand what their needs might be in their future, but also it helps them really clarify what they want for their next home or in a renovation in their existing home. So it's just a way for them to organize their thoughts. What this does is it gives you really, really educated buyers at the end of the day because they've actually thought through what their needs and wants are in advance, which is so nice. And having those conversations between, like if there's a husband and wife, and having them have those conversations long in advance is so helpful.
I'm already thinking of how beneficial it would be with Lindsay, and if I had that piece of paper and I could be like, I've been talking about this linoleum since 2013. Like it's 2019. Like
it's not designed
get
to
on the bus.
to entrap people.
I'd use it as that. But like every year, it's like new linoleum in the bathroom, new linoleum in the bathroom.
There you go.
That's what I do. I'm gonna get one of those.
I can make you one.
Oh, thanks.
So wonderful.
The other thing I would mention about this section is it might not always be bricks and mortar things that come up in these conversations. So it could be clawfoot tub, linoleum, whatever. Could be things like that.
Is there anything ever like whimsical or philosophical that like gets a little awkward?
Okay, so the very first time I did this with a client was with an older lady. She was, at that time, she thought she was 7 years away from retiring. So when I asked her what her wishes, wants, and needs were for her future, she said, I want to retire. I'm like, okay, I'm a realtor. I'm not a miracle worker. But actually having that conversation with her got both of us thinking about, like, what does that actually look like? And she thought, and this is pretty normal for consumers, they don't often really think through the intricacies of what real estate ownership means. So in her mind, she had to pay off her existing mortgage before she could retire, which may have been true if she had stayed in that property. But the other things on her wishes, wants, and needs list were that she wanted to be closer to her granddaughter. She wanted a larger laundry room, which were all things that we could find. And within, I think, 45 days of having that conversation with her, this is a woman who thought she wouldn't move for 7 years or retire for 7 years. We had sold her existing property, moved her into a property that was significantly less expensive and closer to her granddaughter and happened to have the larger laundry room. And
was she so happy?
I vividly remember on possession day, and my dad was there as well, and he remembers this too, is on possession day, she was like so ecstatic, and she actually handed in her resignation letter and retired.
Oh, that's like an HGTV episode.
Crazy. Yeah. So, you know, I call this like a manufactured deal, and I don't mean that in a salesy way at all.
No.
I mean that in a way like all the pieces to the puzzle could be on the table, but your clients might not just recognize that the pieces are all there and they could be put together and they could be living those dreams now, rather than, 7 years
putting
from now.
The linoleum off for 7 years from now.
Exactly. Exactly. So there could be deals on the table that you don't know, right?
That's amazing.
Yeah, that's a beautiful story. That is life-changing.
It is.
Changed someone's life because you had that conversation.
And
that's pretty cool.
Obviously, those things aren't going to come out of every real estate review
Asterisk
that you
results
do.
may vary.
Still.
Yes.
Yeah.
Results may vary. But it just feels good to have those conversations with people and know that you might be able to make a difference in their life, which is kind of cool. So
that's beautiful.
Yeah. That's the wishes, wants, and needs section. And then the other two sections, contracts and miscellaneous, are just filing sections. This contract section is if you sold them the property, you can put all the documents in there that from the sale of the property. People really like to see their old MLS listings. So I would always print off the old MLS listing and bring it with me. I don't know why people like to see that, but they really do. Like the trees smaller,
Yeah.
whatever.
You're right. even my own, when I pull it up and I'm showing people what our old house looked like.
Yeah.
A deal that you were involved with.
That's true.
It's just so
True.
funny. But that's it. You pull up pictures. I show people pictures of that backyard all the time.
There you go.
And I'm always flipping through it, but then I come up like, oh yeah, it was this big, or it was this.
This is a side note, but we did one of these agent pursuits with one of our realtors, Gary Williamson, and he mentioned kind of similar to the same thing about an old MLS, but what he does is about a year after somebody moves, what he'll do is he'll take all the listing photos of the property and he'll put them in a little scrapbook and he'll send them, because they're like, oftentimes this was like somebody's family home, like the kids grew up here, whatever it was.
That's
and the
cool.
house never looks better. And then these people get it and they're flipping through their old house, and he's like, they're super emotional about it. They're so happy they have this like beautiful memory of this house they used to have.
Fun.
Isn't that nice?
Yeah, I like that.
Especially if it was a house that had a lot of meaning to someone. Because you're right, when does your house ever look better than those listing photos?
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, but yeah,
Love
people
that.
like old stuff about their house.
So
right.
you would put all their contracts in there in addition to that?
Yeah, all their contracts, their old MLS listing, if it was sold on MLS, I put that in there. And then the most important thing that goes in here is your real property report.
Yes.
So if you sold it to them, hopefully you have a copy of it anyway. You can just put it in here. If not, hopefully they still have it somewhere. You can throw it in. I always take a digital copy also, because people will lose it for sure. And then you can save the day, save them $1,000 if you have a copy of it somewhere. So I would suggest that you keep it in your own
Somewhere.
files as well. So that's that section. And then miscellaneous can be anything.
Can I ask a logistical question first?
Yes.
Tell me about the hole punching.
Okay. You can't forget to do it. I did that for like a year.
Yes.
Where I forgot. I actually started carrying a hole punch with
So I was going to say, like literally,
Yeah.
like would you carry a hole punch
Yeah,
with
I
you?
did.
Like,
actually did. I have
Yeah.
one in my car.
that makes sense, because I'm
because
looking at this and I know
Isn't it
that.
so, side note, isn't it so gratifying to have like the perfect stack of paper and be like,
Yeah, it is. But it has to be sharp. So every year when you go back, and I notoriously forgot to do this, was your CMA and your tax assessment, make sure you hole punch them.
Perfect.
Yeah, because I was bad at that.
Yeah.
I was really bad at that. And then I come back a year later and they're still in the pocket
Yes.
of the binder because
Yes,
I didn't hole
exactly.
punch it. So that's why I started carrying it around. Yeah. And then, the last section, miscellaneous. I put condo documents in here if it was a condominium. And my suggestion was just to put all the condo docs in. Whatever they got from their condo corporation, just throw everything in there. And then when it's time to sell, I will go through it. I didn't want them calling me all the time, like, should I keep this document, not this document? Just keep everything from the condo and I'll go through it later.
Perfect.
Yeah. That's it. And
So
then,
good.
Yeah. And then just talk about life after that.
Well, let's talk about
that's great.
let's
Chloe.
talk about the results that some
Okay.
people are getting from this. And I know there's some recent stories as well.
Yeah.
I just want to share a quick story from my own business, and I did not do anything to this extent. And I've shared this story 100 times with different people. But
Let's hear it again.
yeah, let's hear it for 101.
One more time. I've never heard it probably.
101. I called up people just trying to improve my CMA system, and the gist is I was trying to get it down from zero to print, beautiful, completed in 20 minutes. And so I just called up people and said, hey, can I do this on your property? I'll send it over to you. Let me know your thoughts.
Yep.
And do you know anybody else? And I did 30 of them. I had 20 calls, ended up getting 30 calls by the end of it, because I got 10 referrals of people. Accidentally, I was legitimately trying to create a new system, and I took 6 listings out of it, and probably did like 4 or 5 transactions instantly, like within, made $50,000 within like a week from that process, just by getting out there and connecting with people.
Amazing.
Wow.
And that was like deals that were, happened over the course of some time,
Yeah.
but generated business from those activities. And you've been sitting down with realtors from this,
Yeah.
and tell us about, so we won't name any names,
Yeah. So one of our agents sat down with me about a month ago, right after the CIR Live came out. And I went through my process with him, and he reached out to a bunch of previous clients. And I think he did 6 of them in a week, and he ended up with 3 listings and a couple buyers out of it.
Yeah.
So it's very powerful,
Wow.
and it's such a great way to get in front of people that you haven't maybe been talking to
Yeah.
in a while.
Well,
or
it's such a nice way to
yeah.
do real estate activities when you don't have anything active either.
Yeah.
Right? Like so many people just come into the office and they just have no idea what to do with themselves. Yeah. And this is like, there's 100 things that you could be doing this week, and it is all of those, and you don't need to have any buyers or any sellers to keep yourself so busy.
Exactly.
If you just play the probability game, and Ninja, with their results, they go through and say that 40% of your appointments turn into a transaction. Now, that's not necessarily that 40% of people are selling, but it could be referral. You've rented some mind share for the next 3 weeks, whatever happens to be. And if you were to say that people move, once every 7 years, but maybe the market's slower, so maybe it's once every 10 years right now, then every 10th appointment is going to happen this year. Every 20th appointment, now you have it where within a 6-month period, people are going to be moving. And
Absolutely.
Just get out there and do them. Like, and just to your point, everyone knows someone, even though you don't have any past clients, everyone knows homeowners.
Exactly. Yeah. They don't have to be past clients.
No.
When I started, I had 0 past clients.
Yes.
And I didn't even know people who owned homes, really, at
Awesome.
that age. So you start with people who can't say no to you, your parents, siblings.
Yes, totally.
Your very best friends, whether or not they own houses, they're landlords, whatever.
Yes.
People that can't say no because you'll guilt them into like letting you in the door and talking to you. There's no negative to letting you in the door to talk about these things. So if you're just brand new, it's such a great way to build a business and to build it in a really strong way with referrals and repeat business.
And you learn all about the areas.
Exactly.
You become familiar with all the documents.
Yeah.
You become great at doing CMAs. Like, you have a holistic approach to the real estate process. I just can't say enough good things about it.
And it doesn't
That's
really
so
cost
good.
a lot of money either. Like,
No.
you're not doing any advertising or, that can get out of hand fast if you're not careful. And, when you're new, your time is the resource that you have availability with spending, if that makes sense. You have a lot of time
labor
to spend.
and capital, and you have no capital, so you got to spend labor.
And it doesn't have to be a fancy binder. That's not the point of it. You can bring this in, $1 binder from Staples if you want to. It doesn't matter.
Definitely.
Just the point of it is getting out there, doing the work, and creating the relationships.
That's so great, Chloe.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Well, we'll try and get some images for this for everybody who's watching, because we've been able to look at this binder and we know you have it. But the good news is there's nothing in here that you're completely missing out on. There's literally a tab that says home maintenance and then somebody who wrote down how much it costs. So you're not missing too much, but we will get some photos for you. And that's that. This video is, you're watching it somewhere, but it's also going to be posted on agentpursuit.com, and it's going to be turned into a podcast. So you guys are able to download on any major podcast players. So if you need a refresh on this when it comes time to do some of these calls, you can figure that out too.
Yeah. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram, like us on Facebook, and Chloe, thank you so much for your time.
No problem.
And thank you for getting us access to this gorgeous unit here.
Yeah,
this
it's
loft.
pretty fun to be
like
here. Thank you.
Office space. You can use it for commercial or residential.
Yeah, it's a cool space.
Yeah, thank you again for that. So watch that coming on MLS. But that dated the video because hopefully it's sold by then.
hopefully it's sold by then.
When you watch it, hopefully it's sold by then.
Yeah.
But that's it. So again, Chloe, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. Thanks for tuning in, everyone.
Take care.